Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Ngayon po ay Lunes, May 10, 2022. Ito po ang the stock market today. We have a new president and vice president. If this is your first time in this channel, ako po si Benji Chadoro, isang retired bank officer na nagsimula mag-invest sa Philippine stock market noong 2007. I do this report every day, which I started in 2020. I also report the latest news on your favorite and most active stocks. If you like the content, I invite you to subscribe. And if you have stocks in mind na gustong ipa-review, paki-comment lang po sa comment box at aking ipa-prioritize. Ang ating news ay tungkol sa katatapos lamang na national elections kasama ang ating financial headlines at ang resulta ng trading sa ating PSE ngayong araw, May 10, 2022, dito lamang sa The Stock Market Today. Don't go away. Okay, let's go first to our financial headlines, and this is from BDO Securities. Moody's says inflation a headache for the next leader. So yan po, no? Malaking challenge po yung inflation dahil mapipilitan po tayo mag-raise ng interest rates at nasa 3-year high na po na 4.9. And kailangan po mahusay po yung management niyan. Lalong-lalo na po na critical ang pagpili ng finance secretary at yung kanyang finance team, which include the BIR and the BSP. NEDA sees pre-pandemic growth restored in 2022. SEC's net income, ito po yung sector and company news. SEC's net income surges 6.5 times in the first quarter 22 due to elevated coal prices. RRHI first quarter 22 net income up 24.8% year-on-year. Mamaya po tignan po natin ang RRHI pati na po ang SCC. AREIT's first quarter earnings climbed 29% year-on-year to 796 million. Okay, but our main news is from the business world. Philippines elections. Win returns Marcos to power and polarization. Okay. Manila, Philippines. The Philippines woke up to a new but familiar political dawn on Tuesday after an election triumph by Ferdinand Marcos Jr. paved the way for a once unimaginable return to the country's highest office for most of his notorious political dynasty. Marcos, better known as Bongbong, trounced bitter rival Leni Robredo to become the first candidate in recent history to win a Philippines presidential election majority, marking a stunning comeback by the son and namesake of an ousted dictator that has been decades in the making. Alam niyo po, tatlo po yung mga anak ng dating presidente na naging presidente. Unang-una po si Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. Pagkatapos po si Benigno Aquino III, no? Naging mother po niya, naging president. Si Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, si President Macapagal. And now, Bongbong Marcos, the son of the late dictator. Binabasa ko lang to, no? The late namesake of an ousted dictator. Binabasa ko lang po yung nakalagay dyan, ha? Hindi po ako nagdi-discriminate, ha? Yan po, no? So tatlo po sila, and it's history because for the first time meron po tayong majority president since the 1986 revolution, ano? And Marcos came back to power after living in exile, no? Kasama po siya ng sumama, umalis ng bansa noong 1986. Ngayon ay bumalik sila and they're back in power. And also, for the first time, after so many elections, since automation came up in our elections, ay overnight lang ay 97% or 94% of the electoral returns were already counted. Yun po, no? Congratulations po, COMELEC, sa napaka-bilis at efficient counting. Anyway, let's continue this. Marcos fled into exile in Hawaii with his family in a 1986 people power uprising that ended his father's autocratic 20-year rule. Actually, hindi naman po 20 years siya, no? Martial law started in 1972. And from 1965 to 1972, we were under a republic, a democratic government. And after that, Marcos declared martial law and he abolished Congress and ruled the country by decree until that Batasang Pambansa. He established that later on in his rule. Anyway, that has served in Congress and Senate since his return to the Philippines in 1991. Marcos' runaway victory in Monday election looked certain when early results of an unofficial vote poured in with 95% of eligible ballots counted. He had more than 30 million votes, double that of Robredo. In other words, tama po yung mga surveys. So in Pulse Asia, and there's another survey firm, and more or less yun po yung lumalabas, ano, with a margin of error. But nevertheless, whatever the surveys, the pre-election surveys came out was more or less true, especially in the presidential. Marcos refused to celebrate, offering instead what he called a statement of gratitude. There are thousands of you out there, volunteers, parallel groups, political leaders that have cast their lot with us because of our belief in our message of unity, he said, standing beside a national flag in remarks streamed on Facebook. An endeavor as large as this does not involve one person. It involves very, very many people working in very, very many different ways. Though Marcos' 64 campaigned on a platform of unity, political analysts say his presidency is unlikely to foster that despite the huge margin of victory. Many among Filipinos of Robredo voters are angered by what they see as a brazen attempt by the disgraced former First Family to use its mastery of social media to reinvent historical narratives of its time in power. Thousands of opponents of Marcos Sr. suffered persecution during the brutal 1972 to 1981 era of martial law, and the family name became synonymous with plunder, cronyism, extravagant living with billions of dollars of state wealth disappearing. I'm just reading, hindi po ako nagdi-discriminate po. The Marcos family has denied wrongdoing, in many of its supporters, bloggers, and social media influencers say historical accounts are distorted. Yan. Human rights group Karapatan called on Filipinos to reject the new Marcos presidency, which it said was built on lies and disinformation to deodorize the Marcoses' detestable image. Marcos Jr. has not publicly acknowledged the crimes of his father and his family's role as direct beneficiaries, it said in a statement. Marcos Jr. continues to split on graves and suffering endured by all the Marcos martial law victims by feigning ignorance on numerous documented atrocities. Marcos, who shied away from debates and interviews during the campaign, recently praised his father as a genius and a statesman, but has also been irked by questions about the martial law era. Sa totoo lang, I think Marcos Jr. should face those tough questions, or else it will linger as truth, di ba? I think he should answer those, because if you don't answer them, mas lalong, it will fuel, you will put gasoline on the fire, di ba? So to speak. Kaya kailangan sagutin niya yun. Kahit sabi niya paulit-ulit yun yung mga tanong di ba? Yun yung mga tanong, totoo ba yan? Totoo. Ay, sa totoo lang, I lived through martial law 1972 to to 1986 under the people power. And alam niyo kung bakit wala kang nababalita ang atrocities na ganyan, yung mga patayan, mga ganyan? Bakit? Wala kasing freedom of speech eh. Controlled yung press. Ang naririnig mo lang puro magaganda. I'm stating experience Walang freedom of assembly. Pagka nag-rally ka, huhulihin ka, i-stockade ka. Ganun ho yun. Yun yung trabaho nila Jojo Binay, Joker Arroyo, sina Harry Roque, kasama dyan si Harry Roque Jokno, yung tatay ni Chel Jokno, si Tanyada, yan po, mga human rights lawyer yan, and they represented the marginalized people of society na nakukulong. Yun po. Salonga was also a lawyer, pati si Rene Sagisag po. Mga human rights lawyer po yan. And they fought the Marcos regime. Ang nakulong po dyan, karamihan po sa kanila nakulong, kinulong ni Marcos. And wala po tayong nababasang ganyan dahil puro magaganda lang po yung nakikita na sa dyaryo Dahil walang freedom of the press, walang freedom of expression, wala pong freedom of assembly. Lahat po controlled by the government. Totoo po yan. Hindi po ako nagbibiro. Kaya po, some of you may wonder, teka, tahimik ng martial law. Well, totoo. In fairness, tahimik po siya in the first year or first 2 years of martial law, tahimik. Totoo po yan. Pero, as the truth came out, ay ganun po, no? Maraming atrocities, and then yung mga structures na binild, like the Cultural Center, Heart Center, hindi po yan galing sa taxes, inutang po yan. Folk Arts Theater, it was built on loans, no? Na hanggang ngayon ay binabayaran po natin. Hindi po ako nagdi-discriminate Ang sinasabi ko lang, you can check my facts kung totoo po o hindi. Anyway, hindi po ako laban kahit kanino, sinastate ko lang po yung facts. I just wanted to set the record straight. Okay? Because I lived through martial law. Okay, so much for that. Let's now go to... So wala pa tayong comments. Isip Romance says, thank you sir sa mga request. Happy long weekend. Okay, thank you po. Maraming po salamat. And Philip Gons says, thank you. Maraming po salamat mga suki. Huwag po kayo magagalit sa akin if I'm saying this. Because it's very sad that we now have a president na binote into power by majority of our people. And I'm not saying that mandate is fake. It is. It is true. And we have to respect that mandate. Yan lang naman sa akin. And sa akin, as a good citizen of this country, let's give the new administration a chance, si Marcos Jr. at si Inday Sara, to make good their promises. And let's pray for them na sana po ay maging successful sila. Pero, wag natin pong pabayaan yung, kung makita natin ng graft and corruption, we fight for what is good, what is right, and what is just. Yan lang naman po. But we continue to pray for our leaders. We continue to support them. Ako po, hindi ko po binoto si Marcos. Hindi ko po binoto si Inday Sara. But since there are leaders, syempre, presidente natin yan, di ba? Binoto yan ng majority of the Filipinos. We live in a democracy. Syempre, sasuportahan natin yan. Pero, kung merong something wrong with the administration, then let's speak up, di ba? Let's speak up. Especially yung reputation ni Marcos Jr. na hindi maganda. Ang description sa kanya, the son of a former dictator, di ba? Hindi maganda, di ba? Ito yung description sa kanya. The son and namesake of an ousted dictator. Di ba? Hindi magandang pakinggan, di ba? Sasabihin ba natin ay fake news ba yun? Hindi. Totoo po yan. Totoo po yan. Na he is the namesake. He is the son and namesake of an ousted dictator. And Marcos ruled as a dictator for 14 years in our country. Kaya nakakalungkot. Nakakalungkot na Filipinos voted him into power. But of course, he's a president. Then, sige, panalangin natin siya. Let's support his projects. Let's give him a chance. That's just my piece. Okay po? Wag po kayo magagalit sa akin, mga subscribers. I know some of you voted for Bongbong, some of you voted for Robredo, some of you voted for Pacquiao or Lacson or Moreno, but please, let's give this new administration a chance. Yun lang naman po. Okay, so much for that. At let's now go to the Philippine Stock Exchange. And the Philippine Stock Exchange, teka, meron yata akong gustong i-share sa inyo. Okay, let me share with you briefly this. Ito yung, technically speaking, sa PSEI index, ang trend is down. Okay? And ito po yung study ni BDO Securities, and based on the technicals, there is a downtrend on the index. Now, sabi niya dito, in last week's Tech Speak, we stated that the PSEI may revisit its recent low of 6,638, and any rally will be temporary. As such, the PSEI did decline as low as 6,630, but the index did manage to recover the same day, closing it at 6803. But there is a new and wider range between 6,600 and 72 had been formed. So ito yung pinaka-support. Another rally followed on Thursday, but as expected, the rise was short-lived and the index dropped to 1.6% to close the week. As the indicators continue to flush bearish signs, 6,600 continues to be the key support. Alam niyo, umalis po yung mga foreign funds, because of the Marcos, an imminent Marcos victory, because he leads the surveys. And right now, tingnan po natin ang nangyari sa Philippine Stock Exchange kung indeed bumagsak po ang PSE. Kasi tingin ko na price in na yan but syempre, iba yung survey, iba yung resulta ng eleksyon. Okay, so let's now go to the Philippine Stock Exchange and the Philippine Stock Exchange Index on how it performed today. All right, so what happened to the index now? It lost 38.97 points, but you know it went as low as 6547.44 or 200 points down. At meron pong gap down dito. Yan po, ito po yung gap down niya. And basically, nag-rally na lang po ang Philippine Stock Exchange Index to end at 6720.93, but still it's 38 or more, about 39 points lower than last Friday's close. And actually there's volume, but nag-rally na lang po ito. But red po dito dahil ang comparison po dito was last Friday's prices. And totoo nga po, no? Yung pagbaba ng index ngayon is an indication of the low confidence of the win of Marcos Jr. and Sara Duterte. Siguro po, I'm just speculating, Siguro po, if Leni Robredo is winning the election, mas mataas po dyan. Positive po, hindi po to red. Positive po to, but I'm just speculating. But I think yun po mangyayari kung si Leni po ang leading. But since Marcos Jr. is leading the race and eventually will become our president, then ganito po ang nangyari sa stock market, no? The foreign players, the foreign institutions don't want another Marcos government, actually. Ayun po yung nakikita natin dito. Sa market activity naman, 189 companies declined, 52 advanced while 34 remained unchanged. The all-share index also declined by 1.02%, while the sectoral indices were all in the red except for the holding companies. No? The losers was led by mining at 7.67% rather, and then followed by properties at 2.33%. Ngayon sa most active stocks po, ay tingnan po natin, may request po yung ating subscriber last week to repeat the following, So, reviewin po natin si AREIT, Glow, Tel, ICT, SPNEC, and let's choose one, yung merong positive movement naman si BDO. Okay, so all in all, we'll be reviewing 6. So let's now start with AREIT. Okay, naku, bearish talaga. Pababa si AREIT. Although kumikita ito ha, and magandang bumili ngayon dahil mababa siya, no? RSI is bearish at 23. So makita po natin na bearish po ang movement ng ating mga stocks. So yung pinaka-support nandito po sa area to, 38.82, but there's another support level of AREIT at this level, no? And this is the lowest since September 2021, no? Yung kasagsagan ng pandemic. Yan po, no? And yung mga indicators po natin, nakita nyo po ito. Yan po, bearish po yan. Nag-crossover na po yung ating mga medium and short-term indicators. Yan po ang tawag dyan ay death cross, no? Yung sabihin, bearish movement ang AREIT. But knowing that this is a very good company, I'm injecting some fundamental slump and it is oversold, then I guess it's time to pick up some bargain stocks. Okay, next we have Globe. Napaka-efficient po ng Comelec natin, no? Doji po siya, pero meron po siyang dividendo. So, yung pinaka-support nandito po sa area to, but it's still in general bearish. Dahil nasa taas po yung ating mga indicators, nasa 2207 po ang pinaka-support level niya. Meron po siyang cash dividends of 27 pesos per share. Payment date is June 3, ex-date is May 16. Yan po. Okay? So after Glow, let's go to TEL. I think this is also lumalaban. Naku, lumalaban si TEL. Although this is a red candlestick, the indicators are still pointing or moving upwards, with RSI, well, on the bearish side, but our long-term indicator would indicate still an upward trend, no? Mukhang nagkakaroon ng bounce sa MA100, which we will place as our support. In the meantime, the resistance is here, 1946. Tapos po si ICT, one of the more active stocks today. Naku, nagkaroon siya ng bounce. Enrique Razon nagkaroon ng bounce. Ang kumpanya ni Mr. Razon. Nandito po yung support niya. Actually, let's place support at MA100. Dahil within this area po, nagkakaroon po ng bounce, while the resistance is in this area at 233. RSI is, well, at the midpoint, 49.65, more on the bearish side. Then after that will be SPNEC, yung kay Degarda, Leviste, okay? Yan po. So nagkaroon po ng, well, just moving sideways. Support is here at 150, more or less. No support and resistance, hindi po yan exact points, but these are areas. But in general, SPNEC is on the bearish side, as our medium and long-term indicators are above the candlestick. Finally, we have BDO. BDO moving sideways. Our long-term indicator are piercing through the candlestick, and actually today there was a bounce of 1 peso. There is a bounce of 1 peso with support here at 124.39, and the nearest resistance I can see would be within this area, 133.72. Okay, yan po ang ating report sa stock market. Ika-10 ng Mayo 2022. Ito po si Benji Chidoro nagpapaalala. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Love your country. Support our new leaders. Continue to do what is good, right, and just. Maraming salamat sa inyong pagtangkilik. Hanggang sa muli, stay safe, God bless, and bye for now.